They say some things from war never truly leave the earth. They sleep under rivers. They rest in old tunnels. They wait behind forgotten walls. They are the lost things, the stolen things. They hold the secrets of a world in chaos. This is a story about 3 of those secrets. Each one is real. Each is wrapped in 1,000 rumors. Each is still missing. We will follow the maps. We will trace the dates. We will look for gold. We will look for art. We will look for answers hidden in the deep shadows of history. The trail is cold, the clues are few, but the search never ends. We begin with a single year, 1945. The Great War is ending. In the heart of Europe, trains move only at night. Their cargo is secret. Their destinations are unknown. Soldiers pack crates filled with art and gold. Families abandon their homes, leaving everything behind. In this final, desperate year, men hid things with great speed. Our first story begins in Poland. The place is Lower Silesia. The time is the spring of 1945. The Third Reich is collapsing. The Soviet Red Army advances from the east, a relentless tide of steel. In the city of Breslau, now called Wrocław, German officials scramble to evacuate everything of value. They load trains with gold plundered from occupied nations. They pack crates with priceless art, stolen jewelry, sensitive documents. These trains are meant to carry the Reich's wealth westward, away from the approaching enemy. One of those trains, they say, never arrived at its destination. This train became a legend, the Nazi gold train. The story speaks of an armored locomotive pulling a dozen freight cars. It left Breslau in late April or early May 1945. Its manifest allegedly included 300 tons of gold, diamonds, industrial materials, works of art. The train traveled south toward the mountainous region near Wałbrzych. It moved along a track that wound through the Owl Mountains, a landscape riddled with secret tunnels. Then somewhere near the 65th kilometer of the railway line, the train simply vanished from history. The tale was little more than a whisper for decades. They spoke of a side track that led into a hill. They remembered hearing the sounds of construction, then sudden silence. They claimed the entrance to the tunnel was blown up and concealed, sealing the train inside its own tomb. The communist government of Poland officially dismissed the stories. They called it folklore, a fantasy born from the chaos of the war's end. But the whispers persisted, quiet and stubborn, waiting for someone to listen seriously. The story broke into the open in August 2015. 2 men, a Pole named Piotr Koper and a German named Andreas Richter, filed a claim with the Polish government. They announced they had found the train. Using ground-penetrating radar, they had detected an anomaly deep beneath the earth. It was a shape nearly 100 meters long, consistent with a buried train. They claimed a deathbed confession from a man involved in hiding the train had led them to the spot. The world's attention turned to this quiet stretch of railway in Poland. The ghost on the rails seemed ready to emerge from the shadows. The search for the Nazi gold train became a modern-day treasure hunt. With the 2015 claim, a media frenzy descended on Wałbrzych. Hope mixed with skepticism. The Polish military moved in to secure the area, checking for mines and unexploded bombs left over from the war. Experts from around the world weighed in. Geologists studied the radar images. Historians scoured archives for any mention of a missing train. The radar scans showed something was there. Its identity was a mystery. Government officials were initially optimistic. One deputy culture minister said he was 99% certain the train existed. This fueled global excitement. But the process was slow and deliberate. The first step was non-invasive. Scientists from the AGH University of Science and Technology in Krakow conducted their own surveys. Their findings were inconclusive. They confirmed an underground disturbance. They could not identify it as a train. The story was a complex puzzle. Eyewitness accounts from 1945 were unreliable, filtered through 70 years of memory. The only way to know for sure was to dig. In August 2016, Koper and Richter began their private excavation. With the world watching, heavy machinery carefully removed tons of earth from the railway embankment. The dig was precise, following the coordinates from their radar scans. The tension was immense. Each scoop of the excavator could reveal a piece of history, or just more dirt. They dug for days. They reached the depth where the anomaly was detected. They found nothing. There was no tunnel. There was no armored train. Soil, rocks, roots of old trees. The hunt had led to a dead end. The failure of the dig did not kill the legend. For many, it only deepened the mystery. Perhaps they dug in the wrong spot. Perhaps the train was in a different tunnel system. One of the many Nazi-built tunnels in the Owl Mountains, Project Reese. The story of the gold train is a powerful example of the treasure hunter's pattern. A core of fact, the Nazis did move stolen wealth by train, is embellished by decades of hope. Official documents are missing. Eyewitnesses offer conflicting tales. Modern technology provides clues that are just ambiguous enough to keep the dream alive. Our second story is not about gold, but about art. It concerns a treasure of breathtaking beauty. It was known as the Amber Room. Constructed in the 18th century for the King of Prussia, later gifted to Tsar Peter the Great, a masterpiece of Baroque art. Its walls were covered in over 6 tons of amber panels, intricately carved, backed with gold leaf and mirrors. When lit by candlelight, the room glowed with a warm, honeyed light. Housed in the Catherine Palace near St. Petersburg, called the 8th Wonder of the World. For nearly 200 years, the Amber Room was the pride of the Russian Tsars. It was a symbol of wealth, power, and artistic genius. But its fate was tied to the violent tides of the 20th century. In June 1941, Germany invaded the Soviet Union. As the German army advanced on Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, museum curators at the Catherine Palace tried to disassemble the room for evacuation. They found the amber was too old and brittle. It crumbled when they tried to remove it. In a desperate attempt to protect it, they covered the walls with wallpaper, hoping the invaders would not notice its true value. The deception failed. German soldiers knew exactly what they were looking for. They were acting on orders from the highest levels of the Reich. They carefully dismantled the Amber Room in just 36 hours. They packed the precious panels into 27 crates. They shipped them west, by train, to the city of Königsberg, then the capital of East Prussia. There, the room was reassembled and put on display in Königsberg Castle, a prize of war, a symbol of German conquest over the Slavic East. For a brief time the room shone again, but its new home was in the heart of a doomed city. The trail of the Amber Room goes cold in the winter of 1944. Königsberg was under heavy assault. Allied air raids carpet-bombed the city, turning it into a sea of fire and rubble. The castle was heavily damaged. Then, in April 1945, the Red Army stormed and captured the city. After the battle, the Amber Room was gone. What happened to it remains one of the greatest art mysteries of all time. Was it destroyed in the fires? Was it packed away into crates again and moved to a secret location? Or was it hidden in the castle's deep cellars where it may lie buried to this day? The search for the Amber Room began almost as soon as the war ended. Soviet art historians, known as the Trophy Brigade, scoured the ruins of Königsberg Castle. The city itself was a wasteland. The castle was a burned-out shell. In the rubble, they found fragments, pieces of a single amber mosaic, a chest of drawers that had been part of the room's furnishings. But of the massive wall panels, the heart of the room, there was no sign. The official Soviet conclusion was that the room had burned in the fires that consumed the castle. It was a simple, tragic end to a beautiful story. But many refused to believe it was gone forever. The story of its destruction felt too neat, too simple. Rumors began to circulate. Some claim to have seen crates being loaded onto a ship, the Wilhelm Gustloff, which was later sunk in the Baltic Sea with thousands of refugees aboard. Others spoke of the room being hidden in one of the many salt mines in central Germany. Treasure hunters and historians followed leads across Europe. They explored bunkers, caves, castles. Each search was fueled by the same conviction, that something so precious would not have been left to burn. The clues are maddeningly sparse. There are German shipping documents that confirm the room's arrival in Königsberg. There are photographs of it on display in the castle. But the paper trail ends there. No official orders for its evacuation have ever been found. The director of the Königsberg Art Museum, Alfred Rode, died with his wife shortly after the Soviet takeover. He reportedly told friends the room had burned, but some believe he hid it and took the secret to his grave. The silence of the key witnesses only adds to the enigma. Over the decades, the hunt has continued. In the 1990s, German investigators received a tip that led them to a small mosaic panel from the room, which a man was trying to sell. This proved that at least some pieces had survived the war and were in private hands. The city of Königsberg, now the Russian city of Kaliningrad, remains the focal point of the search. Teams have explored the castle's flooded cellars with sonar and underwater cameras. They have scanned the ground beneath the old city. Like the gold train, the Amber Room exists in a space between documented fact and persistent hope, a lost wonder waiting for a final clue to bring it back into the light. Section 6, The Tiger's Hoard, The Legend of Yamashita's Gold. Our third story takes us from the European theater to the war in the Pacific, a legend of immense wealth buried in the mountains and jungles of the Philippines. It is known as Yamashita's Gold. The treasure is named after General Tomoyuki Yamashita, the Tiger of Malaya, who commanded Japanese forces in the Philippines. The Japanese army plundered vast riches across Southeast Asia. Gold bullion, precious gemstones, religious artifacts, historical treasures, gathered in Singapore, shipped to the Philippines for safekeeping. The plan was to transport it to Japan, but the war made that impossible. The U.S. Navy controlled the seas, sinking Japanese ships. American forces prepared to retake the Philippines in 1944. The Japanese High Command allegedly decided to hide the treasure. They would bury it in secret locations across the islands. General Yamashita was supposedly put in charge. The legend says the treasure was hidden in over 175 secret sites. These were not simple buried chests, complex underground tunnel systems, bunker systems, some dug by prisoners of war, local laborers. To ensure secrecy, the story gets grimmer. Once a vault was sealed, the engineers and prisoners were often executed and buried with the treasure, becoming silent, eternal guardians. The only clues were complex maps. Maps tattooed on soldiers' backs, maps hidden in coded documents. After the war, Yamashita was tried and executed in 1946. He never spoke of any hidden treasure at his trial. His silence is interpreted two ways. Either the treasure never existed, or he took the secret to the grave. The story lived on through rumors and the accounts of those involved. A Filipino-American intelligence officer claimed to have interrogated Yamashita's driver. The driver allegedly confessed to driving the general to several burial sites. Section 7. Jungle Labyrinths. The Philippine Treasure Hunt. The hunt for Yamashita's gold began in earnest in the decades following the war. It has been a story of obsession, deception, sometimes tragedy. The most famous search was conducted by a Filipino locksmith and amateur treasure hunter named Rogelio Roxas. In 1971, Roxas claimed that a map given to him by the son of a Japanese soldier led him to an underground tunnel complex near Baguio. Inside, he said, he found the skeletal remains of Japanese soldiers, stacks of gold bars, a solid gold Buddha statue weighing 1 ton, its head filled with uncut diamonds. Roxas's story took a dramatic turn. Shortly after he moved the Buddha statue to his home, men claiming to be from the government raided his house and confiscated it. The men were allegedly acting on the orders of Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos. Roxas was arrested, tortured, imprisoned. His story became a cornerstone of the legend, suggesting that the treasure was real and that the highest levels of power were involved in secretly recovering it. In the 1980s, Roxas sued Marcos in a U.S. court and eventually won a massive judgment, though he never recovered the gold. The Roxas case fueled a treasure-hunting frenzy across the Philippines that continues to this day. Thousands of local and international searchers poured money and effort into finding the other 174 sites. They use old maps, metal detectors, local folklore as their guides. The landscape is dotted with abandoned digs and collapsed tunnels. The hunt is dangerous. Searchers have been lost in tunnel collapses, fallen victim to scams, and sparked disputes over land rights. Very little verifiable treasure has ever been officially found, but small discoveries of old coins, Japanese weapons keep the hope burning. Like our other two stories, the tale of Yamashita's gold is a tangled web of fact, fiction, and vested interests. The fact is that Japan did systematically loot the countries it occupied. Historical records confirm this. The fiction lies in the scale of the treasure and the elaborate burial stories. Some historians argue that most of the loot was either shipped to Japan early in the war or was lost at sea. The legend, they say, was amplified by President Marcos himself to cover up his own unexplained wealth. Section 8. A pattern of loss. The threads that bind the mysteries. When we stand back and look at these three stories, a pattern emerges. It is a design woven from chaos, secrecy, time itself. Each story begins in the same crucible, the final desperate days of a global war. War creates the perfect conditions for things to vanish. Armies are on the move. Bureaucracies are collapsing. Records are being destroyed. The Nazi gold train, the Amber Room, Yamashita's gold. A moment when the world was looking elsewhere, at battles and borders, not at crates and cargo manifests. The second thread in the pattern is secrecy. The concealment of these treasures was an intentional act. The train was diverted to a secret tunnel. The room was packed away and its destination obscured. The gold was buried in vaults known only to a select few. This secrecy was then sealed by death and silence. The soldiers who hid the train, the museum director who last saw the room, the engineers who designed the tunnels. Their knowledge vanished with them. What remains are second-hand accounts, rumors, and confessions whispered decades later, all difficult to verify. The third thread is the persistence of memory and the role of the breadcrumb clue. These stories did not just appear from nowhere. They survived as oral history, passed down within families or small communities. These small fragments of memory are the seeds of the great hunts that follow. Koper, Richter, Soviet Trophy Brigade, Rogelio Roxas. Their efforts, their successes, their failures, and modern technology, from ground-penetrating radar to satellite imagery, promises to unlock the secrets, but often it only deepens them by creating ambiguous data. The human drama, rivalries, scams, government interventions, becomes as compelling as the original loss. The treasures remain lost, but the stories grow richer with every failed attempt to find them. Section 9. The Unquiet Past. A final question on why we search. In the end, it is possible these treasures will remain hidden forever. The gold train may have been found and secretly emptied long ago. The Amber Room may have truly burned to ash in the fires of Königsberg. Yamashita's gold may be a grand myth, a cover story for a dictator's greed. The dead ends and failed searches suggest these are plausible outcomes. Time is not kind to secrets. It erodes, it floods, it buries. The earth is very good at keeping what it has been given. A tunnel collapses, a coastline shifts, a forest grows over the scars of the past. Yet the search continues. It continues because the possibility of discovery however slim, is a powerful lure. Armored train emerging from a hillside, room of glowing amber being uncrated, vault of gold being opened in a jungle. These stories are more than just tales of wealth. They are modern myths, adventure, mystery, a tangible connection to the epic events of the past. They transform old maps and faded documents into keys that might unlock a lost world. The hunt is a pilgrimage into history. What does it mean to look for such things today? For some, it is simply about the money. For others, it is about historical justice, recovering what was stolen and returning it to its rightful owners. The search for the gold train and the amber room is an attempt to close a chapter on Nazi looting. For many, however, the hunt is an act of memory. It forces us to confront the chaos and criminality of war. Objects, art, the truth itself. To search for a lost treasure is to refuse to let the past remain silent and settled. This brings us to one last question. Why do we, as human beings, chase the ghosts of lost gold and art? Perhaps these treasures offer a sense of order in a chaotic world. Finding them would feel like solving a final puzzle of the war, putting one last piece back in its place. Perhaps we want to believe what is lost can be found, that what was broken can be made whole again. In a world filled with digital information, we crave a mystery that is real, buried in soil and stone. Whatever the reason, the hunt is a testament to the enduring power of a good story. The trail may be cold, but the signal has not been lost.